In the red soil of Sao Paulo, you will find the descendants of Confederate soldiers who fled the American Civil War. In the valleys of southern Chile, you find German speaking towns that look more like Bavaria than the Andes. Latin America is not a single race, it is the world's most complex harvest of empire, a place where every corner of the globe has left its mark. Juan Gonzalez. Wish I had a year on that because that's cool.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where we persist in our firm belief that curling is not a sport, it's just a thing that happened because Canada didn't have enough bowling alleys. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. So good to have you with us tonight. And you know what time it is now? It's that time, once again, when we dispose of yet another category error that tends to fatally poison the quality of the public discourse on an issue of fairly great significance. This particular category error is one that seems to know no particular political dividing lines. It's a misunderstanding that afflicts the vast majority of Anglophone Americans, and it's a uniquely stupid misunderstanding. So tonight, we shall confront it as we always confront things, and as only we can, by taking a pleasant, leisurely stroll through the verdant, gently rolling meadow of objective reality, pausing occasionally to take a drink from the stream of historical perspective that runs through it, and carefully avoiding the piles of intellectual dog crap that have caused such regrettably large numbers of us to engage in the foolish, ignorant modes of thought that make monologues like this necessary in the first place. And so tonight, ladies and gentlemen, in the enduring and abiding interest of the public mental hygiene, we present herewith, for your kind consideration, Curmudgeon's Field Guide to White Latinos. Prologue, The Beige Illusion. There is a decidedly peculiar belief that has taken root in the American imagination, a belief so durable and so often unexamined that it now floats through polite conversation like so much scented air freshener. And it goes a little something like this. If a person speaks Spanish and hails from south of the Rio Grande, they must, by definition, be brown. Not might be, not often are, but must be. As though somewhere between Laredo and Lima there exists a giant ultraviolet lamp that gently toasts all European ancestry into a uniform shade of something we might call civic diversity. This is what your host likes to call the beige illusion. It is the comforting but rather wacky assumption that Latino is a skin tone, a crayon in the proverbial 64 pack, if you will, a crayon whose slot sits somewhere between toasted almond and latte with intentions. But here is the problem: Latino is not a race, it is not a color, it's not even a Pantone swatch, and it's not a sunscreen rating. It is a cultural and linguistic inheritance tied to the Iberian Peninsula, a peninsula which, the last time we checked, remains stubbornly attached to Europe. And yet, in our American discourse, we tend to speak as if 600 million people across 2 continents and a scattering of islands share not only a common language, but a common melanin concentration. That is not an exercise in sociology, it is an exercise in paint mixing. And tonight, in the name of intellectual and demographic rigor, we are scraping that paint off of the damn wall. Episode 1, the census form that broke everyone's brain. Let's begin with a document that is so boring it could tranquilize a meth-addicted rhinoceros, namely, the United States Census. On the census form, you are asked 2 separate questions. The first question is this: what is your race? You have one of 6 options. Number 1, white. Number 2, black or African American. Number 3, Asian. Number 4, Native American. Number 5, Pacific Islander. Number 6, other. Then you are asked a completely separate question. Are you of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? Now let's all pause for a moment and take a deep cleansing breath. If Latino were in fact a race, the form would not need 2 questions. The federal government, an institution not widely renowned for subtle metaphysical distinctions, has nonetheless managed to grasp a concept that cable news panels routinely fumble. Hispanic is an ethnicity. White is a racial category, and these are not mutually exclusive concepts. You can be white and Hispanic. You can be black and Hispanic. You can be Asian and Hispanic. You can be indigenous and Hispanic. You can even be confused and Hispanic, which apparently is one of our national pastimes. And yet, every election cycle, and more often still, we hear breathless commentary about something called the Latino vote, as though we are discussing a hive mind that convenes quarterly in order to issue color updates. If your whole mental model collapses when someone checks both white and Latino, that's not them being contradictory, that is you being a dumbass. Episode 2, Iberia is still in Europe, last time we checked. Now let's take a moment to review a bit of 4th grade geography, shall we? Spain is in Europe. Portugal is also in Europe. They have each been in Europe for quite some time, as long as anybody can remember. In fact, they are not honorary Europeans. They are not provisional Europeans. They are not exchange students from the global south. They are simply Europeans. Spanish is a European language. Portuguese is also a European language. These languages did not bubble up spontaneously from the Amazon rainforest like a fashionable new brand of artisanal kombucha. They came across the Atlantic in wooden boats filled with extremely confident Europeans. And when those Europeans settled in the Americas, they did what humans have done for all of history. They reproduced. Now, did they also mix with indigenous populations? Yes, they did. Did they mix with Africans brought through the slave trade? Also, yes. Did Latin America develop complex, layered, and regionally distinct racial hierarchies of its own? Absolutely yes. But here is the part that seems to short circuit the internal wiring of the American cerebellum. European settlers in Latin America, wait for it, they had European descendants. I know it's a lot to take in, but we will get through this together. And those descendants did not evaporate. They did not turn sepia upon exposure to equatorial humidity. They did not wake up one morning and say, my goodness, I appear to have become non-white due to a verb conjugation. They remained what they were, Spaniards and Portuguese descendants, now speaking Spanish or Portuguese in a different hemisphere. If speaking Spanish makes you non-white, then every sophomore who spends a semester abroad in Madrid should prepare for a fairly dramatic transformation. Duolingo is a powerful thing, but alas, it is not alchemy. Episode 3, Argentina, or How an Italian Restaurant Became a Country. If Americans knew anything, really anything at all about Argentina, half of this confusion would quickly evaporate. Argentina is, demographically speaking, what happens when Europe misplaces its car keys and finds them in South America. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Argentina actively encouraged European immigration. Millions of emigres duly arrived, especially Italians and Spaniards. Entire shiploads of Europeans disembarked in Buenos Aires and decided, yes, I think this will do quite nicely. Today, a very substantial majority of Argentines have predominantly European ancestry. Take a walk through Buenos Aires and you will see architecture that looks suspiciously Parisian. Step into a cafe and you will hear an accent that sounds like Italian and Spanish had a very charismatic love child. In fact, linguists have long noted that Rio Platense Spanish, the dialect around Buenos Aires, carries distinctly Italian intonation patterns because so many immigrants came from Naples and Genoa, which means, accordingly, that there are millions of people in Argentina who look Southern European, eat like Southern Europeans, gesture like Southern Europeans, descend from Southern Europeans. But because they speak Spanish in the Western Hemisphere, an American HR department will sometimes look at them and confidently declare, ah, yes, a person of color. If your diversity training collapses at the sight of a suspiciously non-melanated Argentine with a name like Federico Rossi, that is not Federico's fault. It is geography's fault and history's fault, and indeed your fault for not giving a shit about geography or history. Episode 4, the German town with better Wi-Fi than you. Now let's talk about the Germans, because there are a lot of those. Southern Brazil alone has many millions of citizens of German descent. Entire towns, places like Blumenau, Joinville, Novo Hamburgo, and others, were founded by German settlers in the 19th century during those heady halcyon days after the close of the Franco-Prussian War, when the Germans declared, now that there is actually a nation-state called Germany for the first time ever, it is time for us to establish our own colonial empire so we can start feeling a bit less inferior to the British and the French and the Spaniards. In Chile, there are well-documented waves of German immigration beginning even before German unification, all the way back to the 1850s, which means it would be more strictly correct to call it Prussian immigration and Bavarian immigration and Saxon immigration, but the host digresses. The point being, you had lots of ethnically German emigres who established lots of German schools, German churches, German newspapers, and all manner of other German institutions. To this day, there are Chileans with surnames like Schneider, Muller, and Schrader who speak flawless Chilean Spanish and can also make a hell of a good strudel. They are not cosplay Europeans. They are the descendants of Europeans, and they grew up speaking Spanish. And when one of them lands at LAX, sunburned from Santiago, passport in hand, and someone mentally files him under the heading of brown-skinned minority, there is a bit of a metaphysical glitch in the American matrix. It is possible, stay with me here, for a man named Hans to order a plate of empanadas. It is possible for a woman named Ingrid to speak rapid-fire Caribbean Spanish. It is even possible for someone to be both Lutheran and Latino without the universe imploding. Language is not a pigment. Accent is not a melanin supplement. And Duolingo does not perform race reassignment surgeries. Episode 5, the Confederates who wouldn't go quietly. And now, because history has a sense of humor far darker even than my own, we arrive at the Confederates. After the American Civil War, thousands of former Confederates left the United States rather than living under Reconstruction. Many of them settled in Brazil, particularly in Sao Paulo state. There is still a town called Americana, founded by these very same emigres. Their descendants, sometimes called Confederados even today, still hold cultural festivals. They still trace their lineage back to the American South. In fact, if you want to go to a place where the descendants of Confederate soldiers still proudly wave the stars in bars and unashamedly celebrate the history and culture of the antebellum American South, well, you won't find it anywhere in the former Confederacy, but you will find it if you go to Brazil. And if that's not the single most ironic thing in this whole monologue, I don't know what the hell is. Now, Just try to imagine explaining that to a descendant of a Confederate colonel, a guy who's now 6 generations deep in Brazil speaking Portuguese, farming his soybeans, that he is not white because he is Latino. I myself would pay a not inconsiderable sum of money to watch that conversation take place, and I suspect I am probably not alone in that inclination. History is a messy thing. Identity has many layers. Sometimes those layers are not as conveniently adjacent to one another as our broad-based, low-information assumptions would prefer that they be. And the Americas were not settled by a monochrome committee. From Spanish aristocrats in Lima to Basque ranchers in Uruguay, from Italian dockworkers in Buenos Aires to German settlers in Chile and Brazil, the Western Hemisphere is a kaleidoscope of European diasporas layered atop indigenous civilizations and African legacies. The result is not a single shade. It is a spectrum, and pretending otherwise may be emotionally convenient, but it is intellectually unserious. And on this program, we do not traffic in intellectual unseriousness. That, after all, is what Twitter is for. Episode 6, Cuba and the racial hierarchy Americans forgot. Let us now don our life vests and sail 90 miles south of Florida for a headlong collision with that cruel mistress named reality. For centuries, many centuries, in fact, Cuba operated under a very clear and unambiguous racial hierarchy. A ruling elite class descended from white Europeans, a large population of enslaved Africans and their descendants, and a complex, multifaceted caste structure in between. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't theoretical, it was plantation economics. By the late colonial period, Cuba had one of the largest enslaved African populations in the Americas, which is a fun thing to mention to your woke leftist friend the next time he assures you that chattel slavery was some sort of uniquely American enterprise. At the same time, Cuba also had a powerful white landowning class of Spanish descent that ran the island's politics and its economy. Fast forward to the 20th century, pre-revolutionary Cuba had prominent white political families, white industrial elites, white professionals, white everything. After the revolution, a significant number of those white Cubans fled the island, mainly to Florida, which is how you end up with a political reality in Miami, where some of the most hawkish anti-communist voices in America are Latino voices, and they are white and Spanish-speaking. The idea that Latino equals non-white collapses instantaneously the moment you look at Cuba's history for more than about 12 seconds. In fact, Cuba alone should have ended this confusion, but nevertheless, here we are. Episode 7, Race versus Ethnicity, the category error that ate cable news. Now we must perform a brief public service announcement. Race and ethnicity are not synonyms. Race in modern American discourse is largely about physical ancestry markers, skin tone, facial features, etc. Ethnicity refers to one's cultural identity, language, heritage, traditions, historical origins. Latino is an ethnicity. It describes people who are connected to Latin American cultures. It does not describe a skin color. You can be any number of things: white and Latino, black and Latino, indigenous and Latino, mixed and Latino. You can even be East Asian and Latino, a fact to which around 200,000 Japanese Peruvians will readily attest. If this feels shocking, that's because American racial thinking tends to operate on a simplified binary model inherited from its own history. The United States had a very particular racial structure that was shaped largely by slavery and segregation. And when you're operating in a simplistically ethnocentric headspace, as Americans have a regrettable tendency to do, it is tempting to project that template onto the entire Western Hemisphere. But the Western Hemisphere did not sign up for America's PowerPoint presentation. Latin America developed mostly under Iberian colonial systems with different racial classifications, different social hierarchies, and different intermarriage patterns. Trying to compress all of those factors into the color brown is not progressive, it's just lazy. It's the intellectual equivalent of labeling every European French, which, needless to say, wouldn't go over very well with the Germans. Episode 8, the mythical creature known as the Latino vote. And now we arrive at one of my favorite American cultural hallucinations, the Latino vote. Every election cycle, pundits gather around a glowing map and whisper reverently about it, saying things like, The Latino vote is shifting. The Latino vote is energized. The Latino vote is disappointed. As though they're discussing a singular hive mind organism that meets annually in Phoenix to decide what its current feelings are. There are Mexican Americans in Texas whose families have been in North America since before Texas was even Texas. There are Cuban Americans in Florida whose worldview was shaped largely by Cold War exile politics. There are Venezuelan immigrants in Doral who have strong opinions about socialism and not the academic kind. There are Puerto Ricans in New York whose political calculus differs wildly from Salvadorans in Los Angeles. Some are conservative Catholics. Some are secular progressives. Some are evangelical Protestants. Some are business owners. Some are union members. And a great many of them look very different from one another. The assumption that a pale Argentine banker, a dark-skinned Dominican teacher, and a third-generation Mexican-American oil field worker will move in electoral lockstep because they share a linguistic heritage is ambitious at best and a shockingly offensive stereotype at worst. Americans would never speak about something called the European vote. Why? Because we understand that Swedes, Greeks, and Poles are not the same thing. But say Latino, and suddenly nuance packs its bags and quietly egresses the building. Episode 9, How America Exported Its Racial Framework. Here is where things get interesting. The United States developed a very particular racial architecture shaped by British colonial law and the one-drop rule and various segregation statutes and a black-white binary that dominated public life in certain parts of the country for centuries. That framework makes sense historically inside of the American story. The problem begins when Americans assume it is the default operating system for the entire hemisphere, for it is not. Spanish and Portuguese colonial societies developed very elaborate, sometimes nigh impenetrable caste systems. Peninsulares, criollos, mestizos, mulattoes, messy, hierarchical, inconsistent, but very starkly different from the American binary. Intermarriage was more common. Racial categories were often more fluid. Social status could often hinge on class, language, and proximity to power as much as on skin tone. When modern Americans try to interpret Latin America using strictly American racial categories, it's like trying to run European voltage through an American appliance. There will be sparks. Sometimes there will be smoke. And occasionally, a graduate thesis that probably ought not to have been published. The irony is a rather delicious one. In attempting to be culturally sensitive, Americans sometimes flatten entire societies into caricature. We accuse others of oversimplifying race, and then we oversimplify race internationally. That is not enlightenment. That is provincialism with slightly better branding. Episode 10, Why This Misunderstanding Actually Matters. Now, someone in the chat is probably going to say, come on, Cap, who really cares? Isn't this just all semantics? To which the host retorts, no, it is not. It matters for at least 3 reasons. First, policy. If lawmakers and institutions operate under crude assumptions about identity, they craft crude policy. You cannot build intelligent outreach, education, or immigration policy when such policy predicates itself on demographic fantasy. Second, political analysis. If pundits assume uniformity where none exists, they will be repeatedly shocked by election results and then blame the voters for not behaving properly. Third, and this one is personal, is dignity. People deserve to be understood as they are, not as a projection of someone else's cultural template. Telling a white Chilean of German descent that he is non-white because he speaks Spanish is not progressive solidarity. It is a misunderstanding wearing a name tag. And misunderstandings, when repeated often enough, harden into dogma. Dogma then becomes policy. Policy becomes reality. And suddenly, a category error has real consequences. If you're serious about diversity, you must first be serious about accuracy. Otherwise, you're just rearranging stereotypes and calling it moral progress. Epilogue, Curmudgeon's Field Guide for a Perplexed Republic. So here, dear viewer, is the TLDR version of your field guide. If someone speaks Spanish, do not assume their skin tone. Do not assume their ancestry. Do not assume their politics. Do not assume they vote as part of a synchronized hive organism. Ask questions. Learn history. Resist the urge to compress 500 years of hemispheric complexity into a drop-down menu. The Americas are vast. They are layered. They are complicated. And that complexity is not a bug. It is the story. If you wish to reduce it to a single earth tone for the sake of rhetorical convenience, you are not correcting prejudice. You are merely inventing a new prejudice. On this program, we believe in facts. We believe in history. We believe in irritating everyone equally. And above all, we believe that hemispheres do not come with Cliff's Notes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much indeed for your kind attention. And I now convey you into the custody of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius from the edge of the world. I'm here. I wasn't really expecting to be. I've got a bug. I'm not exactly very comfortable over here. You can tell by a little bit of that in my voice. But we're going to do this thing. We're going to light this candle. We're going to make it happen. I really liked that monologue, bro. That was killer.
Thanks very much, sir. Appreciate it.
It's been a regular conversation on a couple of panels I've been on when I have a group of black people trying to tell me that they're Africans and a group of Hispanic people telling me that they're Mexican or Ecuadorian or whatever. And I ask questions, because it's what we do. And I'm like, hey, you ever been to Africa? No. Okay. No. Are you Spanish? Or like, I'm Mexican. Oh, you're Mexican. Are you a citizen? Yes. Okay. Seems like you might be an American to me. I mean, just guessing here. In Brazil,
do you speak Aztec?
I mean, I can learn. How many few bars I might be able to fake it. I don't know, dude.
Well, yeah, there are many let's call them identitarian types, Latino identitarian types who react with great umbrage when you remind them that they speak a European colonizer's language, because it tends to be very inconvenient to the arguments they're making in the moment.
And I have encountered more than a couple messing around.
As I'm sure you have.
And I try to be friendly with everybody. I'm willing to listen to virtually any argument, but the issue I had is she kept saying that Hispanic was a race. And I was like, no, ma'am, Hispanic's not a race. That's culture. That's totally different. And they're like, no, it's race. I was like, dude, I have Hispanic cousins. They are whiter than I am.
Exactly.
They are in Brazil and they are partying it up with their damn heritage, just like they're supposed to be able to.
And they still call them Confederados, and they still wave the Confederate flag.
You got to do what you got to do. Anyway, so where are we at in the world today?
Oh, we're never in a very good place, are we?
It doesn't seem so. Although I have to admit, if CNN is dying and HBO is making non-woke video, and Disney is pulling out, has trashed both Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, shit, things are looking up, bro. Rock bottom's a thing.
And on that front, did you hear also that Disney World canceled their gay days this year?
You remember I had a conversation with you, and I told you I couldn't reveal my source, but I had been told by someone that the entire agenda was going to be shit canned in the next year or so, and you'll never hear anything about it again until it becomes useful again. And I was like, that's wild, bro. Like, I get it. We're making headway, but I don't see it going that quick. Poof.
Yeah, but it's always remarkable how quickly people arrive at that moment when they realize, gosh, I think we might have taken this stuff all a bit too far. God damn it.
What gets me is the number of useful idiots that just right on along with it. They just hopped right on that bandwagon and became useful allies.
I believe in current thing. That's all I need to
Current
do to be
thing.
morally virtuous is believe in current thing. And I always believe in current thing because current thing is awesome.
Always awesome. It's current thing.
It's current thing. And it
The
changes,
same product.
at least
It's
every
exciting for
60
next
days.
product.
And you slather yourself in new current thing and you forget all about old current thing because that's not current thing anymore. We only care about current thing. That was last week's current thing. What the hell do we care about that?
Right? It's totally used up. We have to move on. The news cycle has replenished itself, and now
Yeah.
current thing are 3 million files that were redacted, unredacted, re-redacted, and protected in some way. That's wild. But what do we learn from it? Same thing we already knew, right?
That Pam Bondi is a fucking disaster.
And she's not the only one. Mr. Bongino might need his slack snatched up a little tighter too. And what's that other
Yeah.
dude's name? The FBI guy, there was deputy
Kash
director,
Patel.
or whatever. Cash Patel. That's it. That man is terrified. Have you seen recent footage of him?
I did. I saw the video where he and Bongino were discussing the Epstein files, and they looked like they both had shotguns to their back. I was not
Right.
sure quite what to make of that.
Dude, they both looked absolutely terrified
Just,
with what
just
they.
eyes as big as saucers. It was really, really weird.
And it's nerve-wracking too, because I mean, if the upper echelon of the Trump administration is so nervous with this information that it makes them stay up late at night,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to know anything more about any of this. And maybe the Clintons shouldn't testify. Maybe not.
It is. I was interested to read the article today about how Hillary went and gave her speech at the Munich Security Conference or whatever it's called, and she really repudiated Joe Biden's open border policies, and which seems, very out of character based on the last decade or so of her public pronouncements on that matter. And it leads me to have to wonder, is she making little subtle inroads of outreach toward the Republicans as a way of saying, oh, please don't drop the hammer on me too badly when I come testify about the Epstein thing, because we know that a person like that doesn't do things or say things unless it is in their own self-interest. And I don't see any other way in which that can possibly be in her self-interest, except that she is trying to ingratiate herself to Republicans and conservatives so that they maybe don't question her quite as harshly when she and her husband have to go up to the Hill in a couple weeks.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. When it comes down to Pam Bondi, this last performance that she did in
Oh God! Oh my God!
Oh
Dude.
my Lord! Oh Lord! That was bad. That was bad.
That was nuclear level bad.
Very bad. Scotty Waddles, thank you for the $5 on behalf of Captain Curmudgeon.
You are the man, Scotty Waddles.
Yep,
Love you to pieces.
We're gonna give you one of these.
This one's for you, buddy. Nice.
Nice. Thanks, Asmongold.
Right. That's not Asmongold.
It's not?
That's Charlie. That's Charlie from Penguin Zero.
Are you sure? Does he look exactly like Asmongold?
Bro.
Now I'm
This
confused.
one's for you, buddy. Nice.
That is Charlie. I don't even have an Asmongold clip over here for you.
Because I swear I watched an Asmongold video the other day and it was that exact guy.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is they review each other's content here and there, so maybe so. We also have, let's see. got you a $10 super sticker, and he sent me $15 too, some amount.
Damn, dude, I feel like I
$16.
should do a special dance.
I mean, it wouldn't be wrong. And there's another one floating around. Kissy May, thank you, ma'am.
Oh, look
Much
at that.
love.
Thank you, ma'am. Much
Absolutely.
obliged.
And I got one little thing for her too, because
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Thanks, Anna.
that's the way we roll. All right, so basically, we're dealing with a situation where supposedly there's 8 million files, 7 million files, three and some change have been released, and they are multi-layered redacted. Apparently some of this stuff was redacted when they were first filed. Some of this stuff was redacted, a few years ago. And then a final multiple cases of redaction took place in recent months or years, right?
Yes.
All of this reeks of cover up, bro. There's no part of it that sounds clean.
Well, and hasn't it been about 13 months since Pam Bondi said she was releasing everything and there was nothing else? That big dog and pony show where she brought a bunch of YouTubers up to the whatever building, wherever the DOJ is headquartered, and sent them out with these big gigantic binders and everything, and the binders wound up being shit that was released years ago. And she,
Right.
what Pam Bondi, did you think that was going to put the whole thing to rest? That you could give some YouTubers a fun bit of footage, and that was going to make the whole thing. God, I'm sick of Pam Bondi. And yes, it deserves to be said again. Her performance in that hearing last week was absolute god awful, nuclear level bad. As we know, we've talked about it before, that Trump has done a much better job of hiring people in his second term than he did in the first term, but he is still 0 for 3 on attorneys general, and it is a problem.
I agree. That should be dealt with and post haste immediately. Why it hasn't already been. When she made the blanket statement, I have the files on my desk, and then the memes about the desk being in the Bermuda Triangle or a black hole or there being what desk?
Because when you demonstrate yourself in the department that you're running to be untrustworthy and unserious, that extends up to you're making your boss look bad, and we don't need that. And
Agree.
And don't even get me started on Kristi Noem. Everybody knows I don't like Kristi Noem. Everybody knows I think she is a complete disaster. Not as big a disaster as Pam Bondi, but I will say that I think Trump is sometimes too much of a feminist for his own good. I think he has a thought in his head that he has to have a certain number of women in his cabinet, and I think that thinking might wind up being his undoing. There is one woman in the cabinet who is doing a really awesomely outstanding job, and that is Linda McMahon. It is not Kristi Noem or Pam Bondi, who are both disasters. Tom Homan should be the DHS secretary. Can someone please tell me why Tom Homan is not the DHS secretary? I don't understand that.
Well, I'm kind of interested in what's going on in Georgia right now, of course, with Tulsi Gabbard and some, 1,200 boxes or 700 boxes of questionable or documented votes or something. I don't know. Not a lot of information coming out of that quarter yet, and I'm so curious.
And we still don't have a good explanation for why she needed to be on the ground on site for that operation that does not involve the department that she runs. So that remains a mystery.
I mean, really, but I guess you work with what you got.
I understand how there could possibly be some sort of foreign espionage angle at play, but why does the director of national intelligence actually need to be there on the raid unless she's just trying to get herself on television? And
she didn't
be
seem
the
to
first
be
time
trying
that
to get
happened.
herself on television, though. If you saw her,
I guess you're right.
Yes,
She
down
was
a
kind
bit.
of cowering behind the corner of the building, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she seemed to be willing to be questioned, but there for other reasons would be my assumption, given her body language and whatnot. It wasn't like she was trying to hide, but at the same time, she had other shit to do.
Yeah. I'm not all the way trying to hide, but I'm not trying to draw attention to myself. I don't know. I just know that's all really weird. And we haven't
It's all
heard
very
anything
strange.
and we haven't heard anything that resembles a satisfactory explanation for it yet. And I hope people keep following up because I would like to hear the satisfactory explanation if indeed there is one.
I'm not sure there is one.
Yeah, I'm not convinced either.
That particular election was very strange in Georgia. I don't know if you remember, but there was something of a really odd occurrence that happened at about 2:15 a.m.
The water main?
The water main and the
Water main.
amazing
Yep.
ability of votes to continue being counted after they closed the polling station.
The amazing Atlanta water main break of 2020.
That turned out to be a small leak from
Yes.
what I've read. Now I could be wrong, and it's just the opinion of a Sasquatch, but I do not live that far from Atlanta, and they are.
I'm gonna go. I'm
spicy.
gonna go with my favorite Jesse Ventura line. I'm just asking questions.
I'm just asking questions. Yeah,
I'm just asking questions.
absolutely. So I mean, like, where do we go from there?
And well, not only where do we go from there, but um, what can result from it that is going to change things positively? Because it's not like we can overturn the 2020 election. If there was malfeasance attached to the 2020 election, then I want to know about the malfeasance, and I want to know in every state and locale that it took place. And if we identify specific people who are guilty of the malfeasance, I want them prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But do we think that's going to have any sort of chilling effect upon future fraudulent malfeasant acts? I don't know that it will.
They seem fairly upset with the ID concept.
It's funny how that happens.
It is.
I was
Yes.
remarking to someone the other day that in the first 5 presidential elections in which I participated, there was I never heard one single person utter one word of complaint about the notion that one should have to establish one's identity at one's polling place in order to be allowed to vote. It was really only it's been in the last 10 years that we first ever heard that, and I shall be damned if there is any non-corrupt explanation for that drastic shift on the part of the Democrats. If you are opposed to voter ID, it's not because you're trying to save anybody from racism or sexism or any thisism or thatism. It's because you think you can't win without fraudulent votes, and that is the only possible explanation, and I will die on this hill.
What about all the married women? They changed
Oh
their
my
name.
God! No, that's a brand new one. They pulled that one out of their ass like 5 minutes ago. They must have been so pleased with it. I bet fucking Google Gemini wrote that one for them.
Bro, the first time I heard it, I went, wait a second, you're required by law to update your paperwork within 6 months of being married, less in some states. And if you don't,
They've
you
been
don't get
voting for
any.
100 years, and that has never been any sort of issue. So
Amen, sister.
yeah, best
Right.
of luck with that one.
Oh, I want to
Yeah,
know who thought that one up.
I've told the story before, I think, about when my late eldest daughter went to go vote in her first election in 2020, and this was, after the Democrats had decided that they hate voter ID with the hot flaming intensity of 1,000 suns, and she went in quite innocently and handed over her sample ballot to the poll worker along with her driver's license, and they absolutely jumped down her throat and bitched her out and yelled at her, "Put that ID away. We don't do that in California. That's racist." And I had to explain so many things to her when she got home.
Mm, mm. That sounds sketchy. So how well do you reckon this is going to break up It shouldn't do anything to things like vote harvesting and vote farming. It won't
No,
touch
as long as mail-in ballots can continue to exist, we will continue to have a problem with ballot harvesting. And
Sure.
boy, it's not an accident that as soon as the China virus hit, the Democrats' first priority was mail-in ballots for everyone, and it doesn't need to be explained why that was, because it's the best way to facilitate industrialized vote fraud. That's just the fact of the matter. And would it be ideal if we could get back to a world where we had absentee ballots, but mail-in ballots were not a thing? They are not interchangeable terms. They are not synonyms. They are not even adjacent concepts. An absentee ballot is if you have a legitimate reason why you can't vote at your polling place on election day, then please, by all means, have an absentee ballot. But voting in a U.S. election should not be easier than buying a pack of smokes or entering the Publishers Clearinghouse contest. It just freaking shouldn't. My God.
I can't agree with you more, bro. I don't have a problem with any of that as far as it goes. I mean, identify
Queenberg got
everybody.
four mail ballots in
Beautiful.
California, and she's not the only person I know who can say something similar.
Right. I've heard tell of horror stories from folks in Atlanta. I had this one chick. She actually went to Atlanta during the whole lockdown and everything to stay with like her great aunt or something, who was suddenly bedridden and couldn't go to the hospital or the doctor or anything like that. And so she went up there to do like, I guess you call it hospice care. And apparently she got like 8 ballots while she was there, and like all of them were for the same woman. But she got one for her first and last name, one for her first and middle name, one for her first, middle, and last name, one for her first, middle, and maiden name. That's shiesty.
Yes, and if there is anything in this world of which I am absolutely certain, it is this. If you are living in a state, and it's guaranteed to be a Democrat state, where they have the 1-2 punch of motor voter and driver's licenses for illegals, it is an absolute certainty that your state has many, many hundreds of thousands of unlawful voters on the rolls. And the Democrats will absolutely die on the hill of never having those rolls audited or allowing any of those fraudulent names to be taken off, because they have thrown all their eggs into the basket of industrialized vote. Clearly don't. They can win elections without industrialized vote fraud. It's not an accident. When you position yourself as the vote fraud party, that's not an accident why you're doing that.
We've got to get that quote from Biden of him talking about having the most effective vote. Was it?
I remember that. I will find that quote
What was the
presently.
quote? Yeah, find that shit. Get me the link, bro. Voter fraud system in American history or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but he said the quiet part out loud. I firmly believe it. And it's interesting to me that the same systems that seem to have been propping up the Biden regime, is what I'll call it at this point, seems to have been largely financed by USAID, and also like, I don't even know what to call it. Various entitlement programs seem to be kicking, not necessarily entitlement programs. I might be off base with that. But like the Somali daycare centers, that whole thing. Is that me going out or is that him going out? That's him. Okay. So a lot of those people that were doing that whole scam thing, the whole deal was, let's remove that one. There we go.
Sorry, lost my interwebs for a moment.
It happens. Kind of surprised it wasn't me.
And of course,
yeah, no, voter fraud is huge in America. Nobody believes how big it actually is.
I think even the most suspicious person would probably be shocked to know the true extent of it, if I'm being honest.
Well, I mean, if if you could find the true extent of it. Because, I mean, let's be honest,
Yeah.
I don't really see a way for this to stay together between elections without there being like chiefs and soldiers, and it's got to be a whole political organism, you know. And if that's the case, then
All right, I've got the quote.
cool.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Joseph Robinette Biden, 24 October 2020.
I'm almost certain we've used that quote at the beginning before.
Oh yeah,
Sounds very familiar.
probably. I know I've used it in my stuff at least several times.
Oh, it's
Probably
genuine.
overused it, but if there's any quote to overuse, I would submit it as probably that one.
It's funny how they pick and choose what to listen to, and how that was not an acceptable thing to listen to, whereas True and Nana Shabbat pressure was also not an acceptable thing to hear.
Or the entire Corn Pop speech. Corn Pop was a bad dude and he ran with some bad boys.
Yeah, you got a chain or something. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Little
need a
Joe
beverage.
Biden standing
Oh, no.
there in his Speedo with a motorcycle chain facing down the whole Corn Pop gang. That's how Joe Biden rolls. I made an entire video in honor of the anniversary of that speech.
You got to keep talking. Dead air is no good. Good God, man.
Sorry,
I
my
leave you
bad.
alone for 2 seconds.
I was looking for another Biden quote.
That sounds easy.
You know, if we had a functioning press, somebody would have tried to track down Corn Pop and get him for an interview. I would love to see what Corn Pop has to say. 90-year-old Corn Pop.
I mean, how would you find him?
He was a bad dude and he ran with some bad boys.
So
Probably
where do
just-
we go?
I don't know. Check all the worst nursing homes in Dover, Delaware, or was that in? No, I. I'm looking for a really rough former gang leader who used to haunt the local YMCA. Hey, drag $100 bill through a nursing home. You never know what you might find. To paraphrase James Carville.
Obviously, I mean, what are you going to do though? Cry about it on the internet? Probably.
I feel like I wrote a song about Corn Pop.
If you haven't,
if I
you
find the
certainly
video,
should
if I
have.
find the video I made about that speech, can we play it?
Yeah, please. That would be lovely. So, did they ever come down on a decision about whether or not a auto pen can sign a mandate? Executive order, my bad.
There's another question on which we urgently await the answer. We're going to need some kind of an official ruling on that, aren't we? I would think, because if
think so.
depending on how the ruling comes down, then a lot of actions that Joe Biden took are going to be rendered invalid. And wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? That would be the best of all possible worlds.
But what would it actually do? I mean, what's still in effect that hasn't been removed by Trump executive orders?
Hunter's pardon.
There's a bunch of people's pardon on that one.
Bunch of people, every single pardon, all that whole raft of
Ouchie.
pardons from the last day, those people would all become fair game again. And oh my God, I would love that so much.
Oh, Fauci. All those poor puppies.
Yeah, Fauci. And I would say Mayorkas, but he didn't get a pardon. And he still hasn't been hauled before Congress to answer for his crimes. And I would love to ask one of the Republican leaders why in God's name that is. why that hasn't happened yet. Because of all the people who need to be hauled before Congress to answer for their crimes, aren't that guy and Fauci on the top of that list and everybody else is way, 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 way down below them?
I don't know, man. There's so much there. I mean, that entire time period is going to be, it's going to be some interesting theses written about that whole experience. I mean, clearly there was some sort of large scale social engineering experiment going on. I mean,
Clearly.
I don't have my tinfoil hat handy, but if I did, I'd pop it on.
I just dropped the link to the Corn Pop video in private chat if you want to put it up. I recall being pretty pleased with that video. Just saying. Not to be self-aggrandizing or anything.
Keep rubbing it. It gets bigger. I mean, why not?
Authorities are asking for your help tonight in a troubling series of missing person cases in our nation's capital. Police say there's no indication thus far that the cases are related or that foul play is involved, but that could all change based on the results of the still active investigation. D.C. Metro Police spokeswoman LaQuisha Washington Jefferson Jackson said in a statement, quote, "These people is missing, y'all, and we got to get them back, you feel me?" End quote. And I think I speak for all my colleagues here at the Captain Curmudgeon program when I say, yes, LaQuisha, there is a Santa Claus. And also, we do see you, and we hear you, and most importantly, we feel you. Missing person number one is described as a 50-year-old black female Afro-Caribbean homosexual who was last seen outside a house on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on the morning of Tuesday, January 20th. Friends say she was scheduled to start a new job right down the street at MSNBC that same afternoon, but she never turned up for work and, according to reports, hasn't been seen or heard from since. If you encounter this subject in the wild, police say you should notify them immediately by calling their missing person tip line, but they do advise against trying to make an approach on your own, as the subject is described as highly prone to confusion and agitation, often ranting incoherently while repeating the same words and phrases for many minutes on end, and describing herself as a historic figure. So clearly we are dealing with some pretty severe mental health challenges here. And no matter what you have heard from any of your favorite commentators, she does not answer to the name Baghdad Buckwheat. So be advised. Missing person number two is described as a 65-year-old Cuban Jew who bears a strangely uncanny resemblance to a skin-suited reptilian space alien. And the last verified sighting of this guy was also outside a house on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on the morning of January the 20th, where he was reported to be wringing his hands, muttering under his breath something about not getting a goddamn pardon when everybody else got a goddamn pardon, and inquiring of
talking about that.
They happen to know how much a one-way ticket to Zurich costs. Same day, same house. I mean, what are the odds? Look, I ain't no kind of fancy Sherlock Holmes police detective or nothing, but maybe these cases really are related. We don't have much more of a physical description on this guy. All it says here is he just looks really weird and creepy in a way that's difficult to pin down, but it's definite 90-octane nightmare fuel. That's for damn sure, end quote. Now, as with missing person number one, police advise the public not to approach the individual if they do happen to encounter him, as he is known to respond to any sort of threat, real or imagined, by screaming, "You can't attack me, I'm Jewish. Attacking me is the same as denying the Holocaust, you brute. How dare you engage in these monstrous acts of anti-Semitism," end quote. Missing person number three is described as a 56-year-old half man, half hobbit. The kind of man you look at and you think things like, where is the actual dividing line between a dwarf and a normal man? And wow, they let this little woodland creature be a colonel in the damn army, and they gave him a medical degree? Or does he carry a little fold-out step stool in his doctor bag? I don't know. The point being, if you encounter this missing person, just try not to laugh too much. He really is a fully grown man, not a double amputee or a long-lost member of the Baggins family. And whatever you do, don't try to get him to say Mr. Frodo, because this is a very important, very highly qualified man that you're dealing with. This was the man who, according to reports, He hopped up on his little step stool twice a year, gave President Joe Biden a very thorough physical examination, and declared, nothing wrong with this guy, healthy as a horse, best Biden ever. And would you believe the last reported location on this guy is the same as the other two? 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, morning of Tuesday, January 20th. You know, if I didn't know better, I might think we were dealing with a serial kidnapper here. Now, all these people should be failing upward now to much new and much better paying jobs in the, you know, the trusty old fake news media golden parachute program. And here they are mysteriously disappearing, falling off the face of the earth instead. If one didn't know better, one might almost suspect they are guilty of some terrible, terrible wrongdoing, and they don't want to answer any questions about it. But you rest assured, Mr. and Mrs. America, our reporters are on the case, and they will not rest until they have got to the bottom of it. They will be just like the Chinese child slaves at the Nike factory, chained to those sewing machines for 26 hours a day, malnourished, drunk on glue fumes, and loving every minute of it.
Yes. Excellent.
Now we're getting to the corn pop part.
Oh, there's more. Excellent.
Oh yeah, that was just opening segment.
Excellent.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where I don't want there to be any confusion, I think Dr. O'Connor is a dedicated professional. I've had nothing but pleasant interactions with him myself. His bedside manner is just the best. He's the only doctor I ever had who let me bounce him on my knee before he began the examination. I will not countenance any attacks on his character or the character of his relatives, the Sackville Bagginses. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program.
Damn, bro.
And your eponymous. So, the big scandal of the week is, in case you haven't heard, your lying eyes were not lying after all. Everything that you reasonably inferred was true about Joe Biden 4 or 5 years ago or more. It really was true. And not only every single thing you suspected, but also some additional stuff that we didn't even know they were lying about, because it is just like Rumsfeld used to say, we only know what we don't know, what we don't know when we don't know it. At least that's what I think he used to say. But he used to say some pretty weird shit, so I may not have all the details correct. The point being, President Joe Biden and nominee Joe Biden before him and candidate Joe Biden before that, they were all drooling, semi-sentient, semi-animated cadavers that shouldn't have been entrusted with any task more complicated than steering a walker down to the bingo room at 7:30 each evening. But instead of sitting here tonight and telling you a bunch of things you know already, that you've been listening to me repeat ad nauseum since my very earliest videos on this channel, some half a decade ago. Some of you, I think tonight we should really play the greatest hits, shall we? And in the process, we are going to correct a fairly widespread misconception, because everybody knows the corn pop speech. It's one of the most legendary speeches in U.S. politics. You've heard the most famous passages from that speech, all 2 or 3 of them on this very program, probably more than once. But here's the thing about the corn pop speech, because it first gains widespread public attention in 2019, shortly after Joe announces his candidacy for president. So most people kind of assume it's a speech from 2019, but it's not. It's actually from June of 2017, exactly 8 years ago, in other words. The occasion was the dedicating of the Joseph R. Biden Aquatic Center at the Wilmington YMCA, the very self-same pool where young Joey was once just a little boy with a Speedo and a motorcycle chain and a crazy dream. But it kind of recontextualizes things, I think, when one watches this thing in its entirety, understanding that it's taking place when Joe has just left the vice presidency less than half a year ago, when he claims to have still had no intention of running for president in 2020, when he was still in good enough shape to get up and give remarks for 12 or 13 minutes without a prompter or a prepared text, but he was already fading badly enough by age 75 that nothing he says in those 12 to 13 minutes made a whole hell of a lot of sense to anyone who was present, or anyone who wasn't present, for that matter. And so that is what we are going to do here this evening. We are going to watch the entire corn pop speech together, the both of us. The original feed from WITN, Channel 22 in Wilmington. Wait, you mean they televised the renaming of a swimming pool? Well, it's Wilmington fucking Delaware. What do you think? Of course they did. And I expect that I will be pausing it every so often to deliver some pithy extemporaneous commentary, as you do. So come on, Jim Hinkle, let's light this candle, shall we?
Mouse, thank you very, very much. Thank you. Can I, before we start, hey, all the kids, you want to come up here and listen? Come on up here. Come up behind me.
Because Joe Biden's first priority is always close physical proximity to small children.
Because I'm not holding up between them and the pool, man. Come on. My name's Joe Biden, Vice President Biden. Everybody come on up and stand with me. What's your name? There's okay, check. Look, folks, I want to set the record straight in a couple things. I'll wait till everybody gets up here. Hi. You're on television, so be good. Okay? You are?
Wait, someone's actually putting this on television? Well, yeah, it's Wilmington, Delaware. What do you expect, dude?
Yeah, see the television camera?
Hi, Mommy. That's it.
All right. Can everybody be quiet for just a minute? You're on TV, so you got to be quiet a little bit. I've received, because of the people of the state of Delaware, I've received an awful lot of wonderful honors all my career. The greatest honor is serving you for so long. But this does mean more to me.
And now you've named this lovely swimming pool after me. I just can't tell you how touched I am.
Than anything that's happened. My daughter Ashley's with me. My daughter Ashley got her first job down here at Kingswood out of school. She runs, she's a social worker. Bo is associated here. Anyway, the point I want to make is I owe you all. I owe this neighborhood. I learned so much. I was a kid from suburbia. I lived out in Mayfield in a split-level home with my grandpa lived with us and in a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids, my grandpa. And folks, when 19...
Not grandpa, grandpop. Because it's folksier when you say grandpop instead of grandpa. Not many people know
That's
that.
beautiful,
You have to be a
bud.
sophisticated operator.
But I was a senior in high school, and Krzyzewski turned out to be a great athlete at the University of Delaware. But I was runner-up in state scoring championship here in football. I wasn't bad either.
Okay, that's just a lie. He said he was the state runner-up scoring champion in football. Does football even have a scoring champion? Is he mixing up sports that he's lying about here? All right, moving on.
And but I wanted to get more involved. And I realized I lived in a neighborhood where I'd turn on the television and I'd see and listen to Dr. King and others. But I didn't know any black people. No, I really didn't. You didn't know any white people either.
I'm not joking,
That's
folks.
true. So I wanted to work here. And there's my daughter, Ashley. Come on up here, Ash. And so what I did was I came down and I applied to the city of Wilmington for a job. And I was the only white employee here. And I learned so much.
Here comes.
I learned that folks that I work with, like Spencer Henry and Lafayette Jackson and a whole range of people, Jamie Rolls, a lot of great people were my fellow lifeguards. There were 13 of us. I learned that they treated me as an equal. We used to go in what was not as modern as that. We used to go in the key room at lunchtime after a free swim and sit on the floor because it was nice and cool. And remember Boom Boom Cannon and a few other guys that
Boom Boom Cannon. Who can forget good old Boom Boom Cannon? I wonder where Boom Boom is today.
worked here as well. And we'd sit there and we'd talk and they'd ask me questions because I really was the only white guy they really knew. And they'd ask me questions about everything. I mean, things that
Does your penis glow in the dark? I heard white men's penis glow in the dark.
just started me.
I thought we were coming up on the Roaches line a second ago, but I guess it's not quite yet.
It's here. It's in there. It's in there. Give it a second.
Yeah.
Which lifeguard said, "Do I have a jerry
Let him
can, a
cook.
5-gallon can for gasoline?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "But what do you need it for?" He said, we're going down to see my grandmama in North Carolina. We can't stop at most gas stations. They won't let us stop at most gas stations. I learned a lot. And I learned that it makes a difference. This was the diving board area, and I was one of the guards, and they weren't allowed to. It was a 3-meter board. If you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement over there. And Corn Pop was
Here we go. Here we go. We're getting into the thick of it now.
a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
But just briefly here, I don't know how we got from the point A of you used to hit the concrete if you jumped off the side of the diving board straight into the Corn Pop story. Who knows?
And I did. And back in those days, you see how things have changed? One of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board. I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off.
He makes a pomade joke, a bathing cap joke, and an Esther Williams joke to a crowd in the year 2017. And he seems flummoxed as to why nobody's getting his references. Poor Joe.
And he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight racers. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, what am I going to do? He said, come down here in the basement where all the pool filter is. You know the chain? There used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up. He said, you walk out with that chain.
What did he cut the chain with? Sorry.
And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, if you don't come back. And he was right. So I walked out with the chain.
Am I the only one that always pictures him in a Speedo when he's telling that story? I'd like to think I'm not. Maybe I am. Who knows?
And I walked up to my car. And those days, you used to remember the straight razor. You'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty, put them in the rain barrel, get them rusty.
Yeah, to a crowd of 10-year-olds. Oh, yeah, remember when you used to take a straight razor and try and get it rusty so you could slice people's throats with it? Yeah, you remember? Because that's what kids do, right?
And I looked at him, but I was smart then. I said, first of all, I said, when I tell you get off the board, you get off the board, I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that. I apologize, but I didn't know that apology was going to work. He said, you apologize to me?
Nobody still in this crowd still knows who Esther Williams is, Joe. Like, you could have been giving this speech 30 years ago and nobody would have known who Esther Williams is. I'm just saying.
I said, I apologize for that, not for throwing you out, but I apologize for what I said. He said, okay, close the straight razor, and my heart began to beat again. I came down here because I remember the first bumper sticker I saw that made me aware when I was in law school. Proudly for Holloway. Proudly for your dad. First African-American state senator in the state of Delaware. Everything about. And by the way, I sit on the stand and it get hot.
Wait a
I
second.
got
Hold
a
on.
hairy leg.
Did I just have a braid fart or did he?
I think it was him. But it's sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I mean, I can check.
By the way, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy leg.
Oh, Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
no,
Here comes
here we
the
go.
hairy leg.
Fuck. My brain was trying to stop this before we got there, but
Like,
we're gonna do it.
So many of the Biden greatest hits are in this one speech.
Oh my God. They really need to cut back on his drip.
And
Yeah.
a reminder once again, this is 3 years before he ran for president.
Right? Oh.
Like story.
That turn, that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap.
There it is. That's the most mysterious line in this whole thing, isn't it? He's talking about, he goes from kids rubbing his leg hair to, I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping in my lap. Do I have any idea what that means or is supposed to mean? I do not. I take no position. We will move on.
And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And I tell you what, the men, they're now all men. the guys I work with down here, and they're all guys.
Actually makes my skin crawl physically. Are they not anymore? Is there something you're not telling us?
Bro. I'm curious, is he on the list?
Do you see why I gave this speech its own video?
Yes. Oh, gods, yes. Absolutely. Total cringe.
Let's hear Joe.
They're all good men. Most of them made an awful lot of themselves. And Earl Larkin had a rough time. And some of you knew Earl. I came back as a public defender. I came back to Delaware and I got a fancy job with the oldest law firm in the state. But the city was burning. It was burning down here. And I couldn't do it. So I quit and became a public defender. And the first trial I had, I walked into court as a public defender with another guy named Eddie.
Bro, this kid is so fed up with this shit.
Oh, I know all those kids. They all want the earth to swallow them up. They want to be literally any place other than where they are. They have no idea who this guy is, what he is talking about, or why they have to stand behind him. And the answer is because you're black. And Joe is, of course, pandering to the black community. And it's no accident that each person he references in this speech, he mentions their race.
Yeah. Well, he has
Every
to,
single person.
He has to, though. I mean,
well, yeah, and you'll notice also that he has no prepared text whatsoever. He is just winging it the whole way through. I'm just going to go up there and I'm going to be Joe Biden because being Joe Biden is a political winner, always has been. This is Delaware. All I have to do is go up there and be Joe Biden for 20 minutes. God damn it.
Basinski, a defender. I'd only been admitted to the bar 1 week, and Earl Larkin was in chains around his ankles and on his wrist, and they were chained together, so on a belt. And he said, "Who's going to try the Larkin case?" I just got started, and he was aptly named. His name was Judge Stiftel, and he said. Sobocinski said, "Well, that's my colleague. He just joined the public defender's office." He said, will you in fact defend him?"
And let's take a moment here just briefly to remark on how much these little kids are really, really enjoying Uncle Joe Biden's speech. They would much rather be doing this than off cavorting in the pool having a good old time.
He turned to Larkin and said, "He'll defend you." I said, whoa, you're on.
I'm utterly taken by this kid over here who hasn't looked in this direction in 20 minutes.
Oh, I know. The speech gets to a certain point and you can't take your eyes off of the kids in the background because you feel so very badly for them.
I know nothing about the case. He said, "I'll give you until tomorrow, but you draw the jury today." And he looked at Larkin and he said, "You mind if he represents you?" And I'll never forget what he said. I learned a lot. He said, and I mean it sincerely. He looked at me and he said, "One hunky's just as bad as any other. I'll take whoever you send me." And here's what I want to tell you about Earl. Here's what I want to tell you about the neighborhood and the heart. Right on the other side of the field here, he walked along the tracks. He was a sailor in a sailor's uniform, the guy who he beat up.
There was a whole string of things, and I'm not sure they were all. There was a guy, and he got beat up by railroad tracks in a sailor suit. Was it the assailant or the victim who was in the sailor suit? It probably doesn't matter.
He was beaten physically with a rolled up sailor suit with too much starch.
I believe you've solved the mystery, my good man.
They convicted him. I felt so bad. So I go down to the old prison all the time.
He used to go down to the old prison on his way to the Puerto Rican church.
They had little tables, two little chairs, and a big dome you'd sit under where you'd be interviewed. And I was sitting there, Councilwoman, and the third time said, "I'm appealing this case." And finally, he took the table, he flipped it up, he said, jumped up, and the guards came and grabbed him. He said, "Don't you understand, Joe? I did it. But here's the point. He cared about me. This is the man."
Is anyone even remotely following what this story is about? Because I'm not. I didn't even remember this part of the speech. Doesn't this impress you as a man who should totally start being president 3 years from now and then be president for 8 years potentially? Doesn't that sound like the best idea you ever heard in your life?
Who saw me bleeding because I saw this guy going to jail and I thought he was innocent. There's character. even in great trouble. There's so much character in this neighborhood.
Wait a second. The homeboy just confessed out loud in open court, and Joe's still trying to defend him?
Yes, because because his client was a black man, and that's just what you do for the black man. Even if he's guilty, you still try and get him turned free because
Hey, no, you're not wrong there. If you're a defense attorney, that's exactly your job.
it's true.
I don't have an issue with that on its surface.
There was so much character back then, too.
You can even hear the kids muttering in the background now, like, how long do we have to keep standing up here because this is really starting to suck, Mom?
So many people didn't get a shot. So many people didn't get a shot. Who could be standing right where Lisa's standing today, a lot earlier. Could be standing where I'm standing today. Let me end by saying, I was a pretty darn good lifeguard. Yeah, man.
God.
I taught swimming too. And I remember going over, we used to play the other pools, and we played basketball at lunchtime. Remember? Went over to Riverside, we played. And someone on the other team threw the ball to me by accident. And they looked at me and said, "Oh, God, I thought you were on my team." I'm thinking, I'm the only white boy within 20 miles.
I don't understand why that's supposed to be funny. Haha, I was the only white guy. Haha. He makes like half a dozen different versions of that joke in this speech, and none of them are funny.
Remember, I'd get invited down to Baby Grand. I walk in and say, "Who's this guy?" They say, "He's ours. He's ours." You've always had my back. The neighborhood's always had my back. And God willing, I've always had your back. And I'll always have as long as I'm around. I love you. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. And if I were still a lifeguard, I'd say, time to get in the pool.
But don't you all go nowhere because he's not actually finished yet.
Thanks, everybody. And Councilwoman, thank you so, so much for this honor. Thank you. How you guys?
Hold on. About half these kids just turned and started walking. Got flagged back in.
He doesn't raise his hand.
All right. I'll tell you one more story on the way out. You know what? There was a guy, when I first started, black folks weren't even allowed to vote very easily. That's how long ago it was. And guess what I got to do? 8 years ago, I got to be in the Wilmington train station, looking over the 3rd Street Bridge that had been burned to the ground, most of it, thinking nothing was ever going to get any better 40 years ago. Waiting for a black
Or a white guy from Hawaii, as the case may be.
man to pick me up, to take me 124 miles to be sworn in as
That's progress, by God.
President and Vice President of the United States. That's progress. We can make more. God love y'all.
And the video now closes with a good 2.5 to 3 solid minutes of kids cavorting in the pool that has now gloriously been renamed after former Vice President and sadly future alleged President Joseph R. Biden. And I think I should make you watch this as I talk us out. I haven't written anything for the talk out, but I hope you enjoyed celebrating this special 8th anniversary edition of the Corn Pop Speech Wilmington, Delaware Deep Dive of 2025.
Where are we at now? This 8th, 9th annual?
Yeah, this year would be the 9th annual. I think we should commemorate that occasion every single year.
I don't know if you can come up with more to say about it, except maybe some AI footage of the kids, after the fact.
I'm still thinking of things that I should have said during the commentary as we're watching it back. And
Sure.
one of the things is you'll notice the only line in the speech that got any applause was when he said he was almost finished.
Right? Absolutely. That's great, dude.
Oh.
Sometimes I'm glad I live in the timeline I'm in. Sometimes I wish I was in a different one.
Oh. I haven't seen that in a long time. That wasn't a bad video.
It was well done. I appreciate
Well, I mean,
it.
Biden gets all the credit, obviously.
Obviously. I mean, he wrote all the one-liners.
And not to belabor the point, but I think it's a point that warrants belaboring. He got elected president 3 years after that. 3 years,
Bro.
bro. That is
I don't-
mental. It's completely mental.
Yeah, no,
Mental.
I got nothing for it, bro. I got nothing.
And I guess that ties nicely back into our conversation about industrialized vote fraud. But
Right?
my rib shot, Jim Eagle.
And here's the thing about that. And somebody brought it up in the chat earlier, and I kind of just thought about it and was like, I don't know if I want to bite. I'm going to bite. I'm going to bite. We have such a heavy voter fraud mechanism working in the United States that Donald Trump won a vote twice.
Yeah.
So is it really that much of a problem? Except when you look at the numbers involved in every single one of these, I fall back on my previous statement that the last duly elected president of the United States was Yeezy.
Well, and I think in the last election, Trump took a good approach with that whole subject. He said, we know there is going to be massive industrialized fraud in certain states that the other guys are probably going to win anyway. But in the 6 or 7 swing states that we can't win without carrying, we have to make it too big to rig. And that was such a great slogan. And I wish I had thought of it myself. I didn't, because I'm no Donald Trump, but it was a great way of putting it. We have to make the margin so overwhelming that it overcomes the vote fraud. And either it worked or there was never anything to it in the first place. But I would continue to persist in the belief that there are certain statistical anomalies about the 2020 election that don't permit of a non-corrupt explanation.
Alex, I don't know how to feel about this statement, but if he's a very virile man, if he managed to get your rectum pregnant, and it's probably going to be sore until you stop treating it like an entrance.
I feel like you could probably get your own reality show off that.
I mean, really, dude. I mean, have you ever seen what was it? No, not Mr. Mom, the other one.
Arnold
Schwarzenegger got pregnant.
Junior. Yep.
Oh wow, that's a good one. That's not a good one. It's not.
Yeah. Back then, the idea of a man getting pregnant was fodder for slapstick comedy, and now it's something that lots of people actually treat as a serious thing. And
we'll see how
far we have come. Such progress we have made.
Right? Can't end
Some
the
women have
dedication.
penises, and some men can get pregnant. What? Why do you think anything else, you crazy person?
I mean, really.
Well, and you'll notice, have we talked yet about the those judgments that have started to come down in the civil suits against the hospitals for
Dude,
for
that
transing
shit
the
swung
kids?
hard, quick.
Oh yes. And now hospital after hospital after hospital is saying, nope, no more kiddie trans stuff. We are done, because that's the way you get people to pay attention and change their behavior is
Yep.
when you show them the potential of fiscal liability. Doesn't matter what laws you pass, what executive orders, policies,
That's right.
anything. You just start suing people successfully, and that is how societies change, especially this society.
As soon as you open one avenue for successful lawsuit, everyone responsible for these types of behaviors, regardless of whether it's legitimate or illegitimate fraud or whatever you want to call it, they all have to take notice and they all have to protect their asses.
Yep. You want to create a chilling effect. You don't create it with legislation. You don't create it with threats. You don't create it with prosecutions. You create it with civil suits with big judgments attached to them, and then you'll be amazed how quickly everything changes and how quickly this stuff all falls by the wayside. And I think they all know that the grift is over now, and thank God for that.
I hope so. One of the issues I have in like sort of my close friend group is the distinction between gender dysphoria and mental illness, right? A lot of people are just like, oh no, it's all mental illness, and it's not. Some people do have conditions that, can be treated. Some people just want to jump on the bandwagon and ride that victim train to the top while beating everybody with their victim points. I don't play that game.
Sorry, I
Do the
lost my
thing.
sound, but I'm just going to talk us out because I'm on the screen and I feel like it's time for us to talk out. So I'm going to talk us out without any sound. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius tonight. Thanks for taking that fun little trip down memory lane with us to the Joe Biden corn pop, hairy legs, straight razor speech of 2017. It's an oldie but a goodie, but maybe let's keep celebrating it every year because, God damn it, it's worth celebrating. We hope you have a great tomorrow and an edifying day after that and a really fantastic rest of your week. We will see you next Sunday evening, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, like we always do. Hopefully you will arrive in just as vast a numbers as you did tonight. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.